find where I belong. So stress at work happens when I am not in the field where I belong. So the word Swadharma. Swadharma means what I am made for. So if I am doing what I am made for, what I really love to do, that's the first aspect to minimize stress in life, at work. Being in the wrong place, not made for the choice that I have made, one keeps struggling a lot. So one can do the work with the attitude that it's just a job. That will make it mechanical, that will create the stress in the mind, that will make us feel that it's just a job and I'm doing it, it's become a routine. Maybe some new challenges are there in it. So the attitude can be that it is a job, or it is a career where I need to climb up the ladder very fast and I have this to achieve. So in the first one, the main motivation is the money or the gain, financial gain. In the second one, the motivation is position, power, name. So it's a career and I need to climb the ladders of success, get promoted. But the third one is the attitude can be that it's a calling, that it is what I really love to do. And in that case alone, that work itself becomes the joy, the fulfillment. That's why they say very common, no? That you do what you love and you won't have to work even for a day. Meaning, one will enjoy that work itself. Work itself becomes the fulfillment when I am doing what I am made for. So one is to do what I really love. And then second is to love what I am doing. Sometimes if it is not possible to do the first one, then the second one has to get done. Then do what you love. If it is not possible, then start loving what one is doing. For whatever reasons one may be in that. There may be peer pressure, there may be family pressure, there may be so many other reasons for it that I was not able to choose what I wanted to choose. Then I have to start loving. Start seeing how it manifests my potential. Start enjoying that work. One may not come close to the same feeling as what one would have achieved if one was doing what one really loved. But one has to still try to start loving what one is doing. So if that's the first aspect of stress management at work. I know that there are many people who, we interact with the youth, we interact with some of the elders. There are many people who are engineers by profession, who have studied engineering, who are working as engineers, but very late they find that they are not made for it. I know examples of people who have been into marketing and who have done marketing and then they have shifted to training, shifted to human resources. They find their calling much later. Or they find that they thought that they had a calling for this, but then when they start doing it, they don't feel the satisfaction. So to do what one loves and love what one is doing. First aspect of stress management at work. Second aspect, our Gurudev always used to tell us that higher the goal, greater is the inspiration. To perform in life, we don't need stress. There are many people who think like that one has to have stress to perform in life. But one doesn't need stress to perform in life. If one is at a level where one is more stagnant, then stress is required to push that person out of that state. But really speaking, to perform, what is required is inspiration. So if I am inspired by the work that I am doing, or inspired by the idea in the profession that I have chosen, that this is what I want to achieve, and the selfless, the more the broader the ideal, more selfless the ideal, the better it is. Where one is making a difference to the society, where one is creating something of value. That's why if you see a lot of big corporations and great achievers, they would always say leave a legacy, create something of value, make people, make a difference to the people, to the society. Otherwise work remains the same, but if I don't have a higher ideal in that, then the inspiration part is not there. There is nothing to look forward to. So there were 3 workers. They were building the runway of an airport. So the first person, they asked him, what are you doing? He says, can't you see in this hot sun I am cutting this rock? There is nothing else better for me to do. My fate is doomed. He was very frustrated. They asked the second person, that what are you doing? He said, I am cutting this rock here so that I will earn my daily wages. With that my family will be happy, I will be happy. They asked the third person, what are you doing? And he said, I am building a base for you to fly high. So the work remains the same, but the ideal that he is entertaining is very different, more selfless. A higher ideal is entertaining. So higher ideal is not about leaving what I am doing right now and doing something very different. Then one feels that no, that is not possible for me to do. But higher ideal is about whatever I am doing, in that what is my vision behind it. It can be very small, or it can be very big. What matters is the vision, what matters is the inspiration behind that action. That what effect will this action have and how am I doing it. The highest form of action is called as Karma Yoga, where even a small action, maybe writing a letter, is dedicated to the Lord. Then work becomes worship itself. If you see, our Gurudev used to write every day at least 100-150 letters in the morning. And for him that was a worship. It was not just clearing up his mails. And he used to call all that as his puja samagri. The pen, the letter pad, the envelope, the stamp, all that is the puja samagri for him. And the letter that he used to write is like the worship of the Lord. The talks that he used to give were not just talks for him, but the vision behind it was that we want to revive the culture. We want to inspire the strength of Vedanta in the hearts of the youth, in the hearts of the corporates. If today Bhagavad Gita is recognized as such an important book and people are opening it and reading it, one of the greatest credits goes to Gurudev. Because he brought it from the puja room of the common man. It used to be in the puja room. People used to worship the Gita but never open it and study it. So from the puja room to the drawing room of the common man, to the corporate rooms, to the boardrooms of the corporates, to the campuses of the college youth, 40 years he put his efforts for that book to travel this much. To get it out from the puja room into the marketplace, into the drawing rooms, into the colleges, into the schools. So that was the idea that he was inspired by. So what is the idea that I am inspired by in my work? Whatever work I am doing. The greater the ideal, greater is the inspiration, lesser is the stress. And the secret in that is that the ideal must be selfless. So in the management language they say that think beyond yourself. Have an ideal which is beyond yourself, which is greater than yourself, in which I can lose myself, in which I can forget myself. So that is the second aspect. First aspect is to do what I really love. Second aspect is to find in what I really love, find an ideal which is selfless, which is inspiring. Third aspect is in that very work that I am doing, there needs to be moderation. Moderation, in today's life especially, we find that there is extremes. The one reason for stress is one works like a workaholic for such a long time, 5 days, 6 days a week. No proper time to eat food, no proper rest. In the Gita we say, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga. But there is one more yoga in the Gita which is called as moderation yoga. Is there? 6th chapter says that. Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu. That moderation in what? In food. Ahara. Vihara. In exercise, in recreation. Yukta cheshtasya karmasu. In appropriate amount of work I must do. Not too much, not too less. So ahar, vihar, karma. Moderation in sleep. The lesser we sleep, more inefficient we are. But the opposite is not true. The more you sleep, more efficient you are. Moderation in sleep. One has to sleep in moderate quantity. That one has to find for oneself. If one finds that one's life is so, it is so busy that one is not able to get that time out, one has to rethink. Because today there is enough scientific evidence which is available, which says that when we don't sleep enough, we are reducing that many number of years from our life, which we don't realize. So moderation in food, moderation in exercise, moderation in sleep, moderation in the work that we do, and even moderation in the spiritual practice. There's a nice saying which Guruji Swami Tejovayananji says, don't work without rest and don't rest without work. That is moderation in work. Don't work without rest. One keeps on working. And don't rest without work. And that is absolute tamas. Let there be moderation in both work and in rest. Creativity is maximum. Freshness is maximum. Ability to be gentle and loving to people is better. When we are not able to get enough rest, food, exercise, we are more irritable. Then the work pressure builds up. So many times the work pressure is not directly related to only the situation at work. It is also related to our other aspects of life. So do what you love, find a selfless ideal, let there be moderation. Fourth, very important, is the time management aspect. There are lots of things which are required. But one of the causes for stress is unreasonable deadlines which are set. The very word deadline itself is deadly. By the time you reach it, you are dead. That's why better to use the word lifeline. This is a lifeline that I have to reach. At this time I have to finish this work. Deadline itself is like a pressure. Oh my God, it's a deadline I have to reach. So time management, very, very important factor. Many aspects are there about time management. 2-3 aspects are, one is urgency syndrome. That so many of us are victims of that urgency syndrome. That till something doesn't become urgent, one will not do. So one has to plan out the work properly and do it systematically, not to fall for that urgency syndrome. Second aspect of time management is, if there are many things to do, prioritize, focus and execute. When we don't prioritize, then typically what happens, one work I am doing, not even half I have finished that, the mind says, no, this is not important, that is more urgent. One jumps to that. One starts doing that, then one remembers the third one is much more urgent. One jumps to that. One keeps doing that. As a result, none of the work gets completed. So prioritize, focus, and then execute. Once I have prioritized, this is the order in which I have to do. Then just focus on that work at hand. At that time, no other work exists. And then execute first. So that's another aspect of time management. Third aspect of time management is, in the Ramayana, Bhagwan Ram asks Bharat, in Valmiki Ramayana there is a chapter called Kachit Sarga, that is 100th chapter of Valmiki Ramayana, where different questions Bhagwan Ram is asking Bharatji for about administration. That are you doing this? How are you ruling the country? Basically, a lot of management wisdom is there in that. So in that, one of the points he asks Bharat is Laghu Moolam Mahodayam. That are you spending less time in the high priority tasks? Meaning, most important time of the day, are you doing the tasks which are most important? Where the time investment is minimum, but the returns are maximum. Or do you spend the time in doing some ordinary things first, small things, and keep postponing that very important thing? So Stephen Covey calls it as first things first. I must do first things first. It is always tempting. That law of Parkinson is like that. It is always tempting that work expands to fill the time. Suppose I have 1 hour and a job is there which takes only 20 minutes. If I have not prioritized properly, that 20 minutes work will stretch to 1 hour. So I have to prioritize and finish what is important first. And typically small things are many to do, and it appears that there are 10 small things in my list and those 10 things will go off the list. So the temptation is to do those 10 small things. But by doing all those 10 small things, the pressure builds up for that 1 or 2 major things that are supposed to be done, and I am getting tired doing these 10 things. Hence time management is a very crucial aspect. In fact, time management is life management. Whole life is managed properly when we learn how to manage our own time. So do what you love what you do. Let us find a selfless ideal. Third is the moderation part. Fourth is to improve the time management skills. Fifth is stress comes when there is a dependence on the result. That this result I must attain. Functional dependence is not a problem that okay, the company needs to grow from this level to this level and let there be the target which is to be achieved and work hard towards it. But when there is a psychological dependence on it, when we connect our work with our works, that only when I achieve this, then I am successful, then there is a problem. That creates anxiety, that creates stress. Psychological linkage should not happen. I am worthy no matter what. My self-esteem doesn't go up and down by the success or the failure of that particular project. Not to make us complacent, but to make us aware that work is just one aspect of my life. Even in that work, there is one project which is an aspect of my life. Why should I allow that to judge me? My performance, my whole life. I can always improve my performance by judging that particular performance. But if I judge myself on that, that's the reason why there is so much of stress. Otherwise, result by itself cannot create stress in life. Even if a student wants to achieve certain result, is not desired by the Lord. The whole motivation to protect dharma is not there. Why will the war even happen? Bhagavan would have told Arjun, go. He wanted to anyway go away. Bhagavan says, no, you stay here, you have to perform your duty, and to protect dharma is very important. And the whole war of Mahabharata, they won mainly because of the grace of the Lord and the blessings of the Lord. So Karmanivadika doesn't say that don't expect a result. The Shlok is very clear. It says that you can expect a result and work. Also accept the result with gratitude and humility. That whatever result has come, I will accept it. In that acceptance there is peace. If there is conflict in life, it's because there is no acceptance of the result or there is anxiety for that result. Why is that anxiety there? Only because there is psychological dependence. Otherwise there will not be any anxiety. And today this philosophy so many people apply. If you ask any sportsman, before a very important game, that there's so many people who are expecting so many things from you and this is a crucial match, you have to win. What are your thoughts about it? One of the common things that they will say is, we are going to take it as it comes. We are going to play it ball by ball. We are not too anxious about the result. Even industrialists, you will find them applying that. Different people, they apply that nowadays, and in management language it is called be process oriented, not only result oriented. So if I focus on the process, so Gurudev always told us, do the best and leave the rest. That's the philosophy of the Gita. Do the best always, so that the work becomes the inspiration, not just the result. And whatever result comes, I am ready to accept it. So if I do the best and leave the rest, if I don't leave the rest, I have to leave my rest. I will get anxious. So might as well be balanced. So dependence on the result creates more stress to us, more anxiety to us. Hence in the Gita, Bhagavan always says that enjoy that very work you are doing and let the results be accepted with prasad buddhi. In a temple when we go, whatever prasad is given to us, we accept. Nobody says that, why didn't you give me that prasad? So very word prasad means, sad means to sit, settle down. Prasad means the mind settles down. So whatever result comes, if I accept it with that humility, then there is happiness, there is cheerfulness, there is no tension. If it is not up to my satisfaction, one can even evaluate the performance, see where the flaws are. All that can be done. But anxiety for the result is one of the biggest drainers of stress. Drainers of the mental energy. It creates a lot of stress. So why am I anxious? One has to find out those factors. And what is my psychological dependency because of which I am anxious? Somewhere it is related to my image. If that I am able to undo, one will be very free. That's why we say that detachment, the philosophy of detachment, in a very popular terminology we call it as philosophy of vow. Vow means with or without. The result comes, one says wow. If the result doesn't come as per the expectation, one still says wow. If you go home today and there is a wonderful dinner laid out for you, you say wow. If there is some bangan ka bharta which you don't like, you still say wow, because it has come. If the student gets a certain result which is expected, one says wow. If one doesn't get, one still says wow. If this simple thing one learns, so many suicides and drugs and depression cases will get sorted. Because how much dependence is there on the result? And when one doesn't get, many times bright youngsters, they get into all this. Because 1 or 2% they couldn't get, and one did not get a certain admission in a certain educational institution. Because the anxiety on the result, the dependence on the result is so much that one is very anxious that if I don't get, what will happen? So whatever the results come, I should be able to accept. That is prasada buddhi. So karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma karma phala hetur bhuhu. The motive of action should not be just the result. Motive of action should be to manifest the potential that I have. And how I can keep expressing that more and more and more. So that is the fifth aspect. That let there be detachment from the result. I always give this formula, time tested formula. for sorrow and misery. You can apply. And if you don't experience sorrow, money back guarantee. What is the formula? Insistence plus resistance is equal to sorrow. That if there is insistence in life that this has to be like this only, no other way I will accept it. And if there is resistance, that what comes to me in my life, I don't want to accept. Why did this come to me? I don't want it. The insistence and resistance will create sorrow, 100% sorrow. Insistence is on the result before it has come. Resistance is for the result when it has come. Then there is sorrow. Then what is the formula for happiness? Because it's not fair to leave you with a formula only for sorrow. So the formula for happiness is acceptance plus independence is equal to happiness. Whatever result comes, let me accept and let there be no dependence on that result. That only when I get this, I will be happy. How do we know that that is the only thing which is good for me right now? Abdul Kalam could not become a pilot. He was very unhappy. Everyone becomes unhappy at that point in time when one doesn't get what one wants. But in the cosmic law or in the higher intelligence, the Lord knows what is best for me. So Gurudev always used to tell us that don't try to challenge the cosmic intelligence by your petty little thinking. That cosmic intelligence knows what is the best for us. So accept. Dr. Abdul Kalam, he could not become the pilot. He was so sad and dejected. Sitting on the banks of the Ganges on Rishikesh, he couldn't clear that vision test, so he couldn't become a pilot. So he saw Divine Life Society is right across there. So he went there, and that time Swami Shivanandaji was there. Swami Shivanandaji was also the guru of Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda. So Dr. Abdul Kalam, he went there. So satsang got over, and Swamiji, people were coming to meet him, so he also went. So Swamiji asked him that, why are you so sad? And he said that I wanted to become a pilot, I worked so hard and I cleared this, I cleared the group discussion, I cleared the interview, I cleared so many things, but I couldn't clear the vision test. So I'm so sad I am not able to achieve that goal. So he said two things. Swami Shivanandaji told him, which changed his life. So he says, one thing he said is, defeat the defeatist in you. That in each one of us there is a defeatist which says that you are not good enough, you cannot do this, you cannot improve in life, you cannot achieve great things in life. It constantly pulls us down. And there is also that anxiety which remains when one doesn't attain that result. So for that, Shivanandaji told him, so what if you couldn't become a pilot? There may be greater things in store for you. Stress can go away when I am able to not only accept the result, but I am also able to look at the future with hope and possibility rather than with rejection. That if I didn't get this, lives of lots of great people shows that. Amitabh Bachchan was rejected. Very tall. Lata Mangeshkar was rejected. Lot of places you will find that many great people in the beginning, they are not able to get through. They don't lose hope. You look at the life of Steve Jobs, how many problems in his life. The company which he founded, he was kicked out from that company. And then he made a comeback also. So when the results come to us, if I can look at them with hope for the future, that so what if I couldn't become this? So what if I could not get this particular result? There may be better things in store. That hope always makes a person look forward and let go of that regret and be more open. This is actually called flow with the flow. The detachment is flowing with the flow. If I resist and I insist, then there is sorrow, then there is stagnation, there is misery. So dependence on the result, one must drop the dependence on that result. Psychological dependence, that is the fifth aspect. Sixth aspect here is, in our culture, in the third chapter of the Gita, we always say that work with the yajna spirit. That let there be a spirit of togetherness, of a cooperative endeavor. Especially in today's world, we have to know very clearly that individually, however brilliant I may be, if I have to achieve success and do something very meaningful and influential, I need to work with people. Life itself is a movement in relationships that we saw yesterday. So however brilliant I may be as an individual, I have to develop my team building skills, working with people together in a happy and a harmonious way, to motivate people, to keep them together, to let the differences not overpower the very goal that one is striving to achieve. So that training that actually comes from the higher selfless ideal. Yajna spirit means working together for a common selfless goal, putting all our differences aside. Even if this one program is conducted here, so many people have come together that we must share the knowledge, and so somebody has come together to book the hall, somebody has come together to manage the arrangement, somebody is doing the announcement, different people have come together to ensure that this experience we have is happening. Because the goal is one and everybody works together. So even in a company, there may be differences between people, there may be differences between the boss and the subordinates, but if the goal, if that vision is that is more important than our individual differences and our ego, then one comes together leaving aside all that. In lot of places you will see the problem is not actually there, it is all psychologically there because the ego blocks. Ego blocks are too rigid, so then the progress is not fast. Even in our country you will see so many things are not moving fast, is mainly because of the ego fights. It is not actually that there is a big problem out there because of which it can't happen. The ego. That country is more important than individual or the party. That vision is not there. So if that vision is not there, then individual becomes more important. Where self-importance is more and more asked by different people, there will be conflict, there will be stress. How to work together in the spirit of surrender, that is very important aspect. Surrender actually is the key. One key one has to point out for stress management, it is only surrender. Let there be surrender, surrender to the higher. So when this ego is given up, that is called yajna spirit. In the earlier days, people used to do a yajna or a havan. Each one used to bring whatever they could bring. Somebody will bring firewood, somebody will bring flour, somebody will bring rice, somebody will bring ghee. And all of them work together for a common cause, that let there be prosperity in the community, let there be rain in the community. Whatever one thinks, that is the ideal, that all of them are bound by that one ideal. So working together. And in working together, one aspect is also important, is many times if one feels that somebody is taking advantage, one has to learn to be assertive. The seventh aspect, assertiveness training is important. One should not be passive, one should not be aggressive, but one should be assertive. That what is the right thing to do, or what is most appropriate to do, if one is very clear about that, and one disagrees with certain other ways of manipulation or certain other ways of domination, then one should be assertive enough to say, firmly yet politely. This training has to come. It is not very easy. Many times one is stressed out because one gets exploited in the workplace. Somebody keeps on dumping more and more work on that person, or somebody does not give enough appreciation, or somebody wantedly makes undue comments. A lot of such things keep happening. Some promises are made and then they are not delivered. All these things can happen. At all such times, one of the things that can be done is I have to learn to be assertive. Either we become very passive, so we keep on suppressing and suffocating, or one becomes very aggressive, becomes violent, becomes angry, becomes rude. But how to be assertive, how to be polite and yet firm in saying what one has to say. That is assertiveness training, that is very crucial. That requires certain inner strength, at the same time that requires selflessness also. What has to be said without compromise there. And yet it is said not to hurt. That in that assertive way it has to be put across. So assertiveness training is one aspect again of stress management. We also need to create a climate in the workplace where the build-up of stress doesn't happen. There are no opportunities sometimes in a workplace to discuss the negativities or discuss the factors that are draining out the employees or the workers. So the job of that management or that company or the CEO or the manager is to create an environment in such a way that people are able to express what is bothering them, what is the negative aspect which they are feeling, or there is a negative energy in the group, in the team because of some individual. One has to have that capacity, one has to have that climate where this is expressed to people, that they can express this, their difficulty. Also, the climate of the company has to be such that a person is treated as a person, an employee is treated as an individual, as a person. Many places that doesn't happen. They are used as means to achieve some target. They are not treated as people, as human beings. So if a person doesn't feel belong, at the end of the day everyone is an emotional being also. So one has to feel the belongingness to that organization, to that company. And if that happens, then that person also is ready to go beyond one's role, to sit through, to achieve what the company requires to achieve. There is identification which is built. So stress happens when a person is not treated as a person, when the person is treated only as a means to just achieve some goal. Typically that happens when one is driven more by the target. That target, when it gets into the mind of the person and one is worked up by the target, then one doesn't care about what the team member is going through, what are the difficulties. As a human being, are there any issues that the person is facing? Is there balance in the life of that person? That one is not bothered on. So let there be that feeling that every person is an individual first and then is an employee, is a person, is a living human being. That is the 8th aspect. 9th is we have to make our sedentary lifestyle more active. Work, typically hours together when one is working, the lifestyle is so sedentary. And one has to ensure that some way or the other, that's our personal responsibility, that we balance it by playing some sport or doing something active. That creativity has to be there in life, otherwise one becomes mechanical. Maybe I am playing a sport, maybe I am doing some hobby, or maybe doing some painting or learning some music, whatever it is, something I have to do which is not, which helps me to let go of that work. Many of you may be aware of this particular thing which they do quite often. Suppose we say, you hold this, what is the weight of this? Approximately. Just guess. 100 or 150 grams, right? So if I hold this for a few moments, it is fine. But if I have to hold it for a few minutes, the same 150 grams will appear as though it is 500 grams. If I hold it for some more time, if I hold it for maybe 2-3 hours, frozen shoulder, one may feel terrible pain. So the weight remains the same. But it is always said that the longer you hold, the heavier it becomes. Same thing it is that one is sometimes not able to unhook. So one carries that work at home also. And with the mobile and the technology that is available today, one is expected to be all the time available. So one is not able to cut off. So one has to find ways and means to switch off and let go of that stress. Otherwise one will get burnt out very soon. And we are seeing those expressions. You ask anybody, how are you? Generally they will say just fine. But otherwise, if they are known to you, they are little close to you, stressed out, sweaty, tired, burnt out, exhausted. And if they are very close to you, say how are you and run away. Otherwise you can't handle what is going to come. One long story will come out. Because the pressure of life is so much. One is not able to sleep. Sleeping pills and all that one has to take. So the idea is that let there be that capacity, let us drop, not carry it forward. So some activity, something to unhook. And typically in the stress management seminars, that's what they will make them do. Big CEOs and all of them, when they go for some stress management seminars, what do they make them do? They'll give them clay, they'll give them paints, they'll give them canvas, and they'll give them colors and some instruments, and they'll say just become childlike. Explore what is that? Manifest the child in you. One has to get back to that childlike nature. Why? Because the mind is all the time so much of pressure is there about the targets. So that environment must be created. I don't know if you have seen pictures of this office of Google. Have you seen? Very fantastic environment that Google office has created. So the employees don't feel that they are going for some work. There are cubicles and sitting there and on the computer and all that. Their whole environment is made in such a way, the types of colors, the way in which the whole thing is made. The creativity of the individual starts coming out. So there they have made the work environment itself like that. So what can we do to ensure that our work we don't keep on carrying forward? Somewhere one has to let go. For that something else one has to hold on to. So focus on what one likes to do apart from work. Many times we have forgotten that. After a certain age we just forget what were our hobbies, what we really like to do. And a few years in one's life one becomes that way, very, very work oriented. So few aspects we have seen till now. One is do what you love and love what you do. Second is let there be a selfless ideal in our life. Third one is the moderation aspect. There should be moderation in our life in different areas. Fourth one is time management training. Fifth one is dependence on the result. One should reduce and even one should let go. Sixth one is let us work in the spirit of togetherness and yajna spirit. Seventh is let there be assertiveness training. We have to go through training in assertiveness also. Eighth one is let us create a climate where one can mutually express the reasons for one's stress and where we are able to let go of the stress by focusing on some other aspects of life also. Ninth aspect here is let there be centering in oneself. Stress comes a lot when there is comparisons which happen. So when we start psychologically comparing, then we become very stressed. that I am also well qualified, the same qualification I also have. I am in fact putting more hours of work, but that person is still getting more than me. I think that person is influencing the boss in some different way. Whatever, one starts comparing. And if you see the comparisons, the way they drain our energy, in daily life you will find many examples. Between Sachin Tendulkar and Vinod Kambli, if you ask their coach, they both had a common coach. And the coach would say that Vinod Kambli is much more talented. But where is Vinod Kambli and where is Sachin Tendulkar? Why this happened? One of the reasons is Kambli kept comparing. Sachin kept focusing on his game. Between Duryodhana and Bhim, if you see, the potential of Duryodhana is much more actually. And he got trained by Balram also. He is more strong. Between Arjun and Karna, if you see, Karna is much more stronger than Arjun, more efficient. And yet, Duryodhana and Karna, both of them kept on comparing. So instead of focusing on manifesting my potential, the comparison is to put down the other person. Is that not happening? One of the ways by which one of the ways one sees in the world is to put down the competitor. Instead, let the focus be on increasing one's own innovation, in one's own speed, one's own technology. One will be more successful. Why should the energy go to put down the competitor? And then stress comes because of the comparison. Not that one should not be aware of what is happening around, but the psychological comparison is what drains a person. And sadly, even if that person achieves a lot, one still feels lesser, because comparisons make a person insecure. So comparison should always be avoided. We always may say that your competition is only with yourself, you compete with your own yesterday's performance. That is easier said than done. What is necessary in that is the mind must be more secure. That's why that first point, do what you love, matters. A lot of these points come back to the first point actually, to do what you love. And the 10th and the last point is that maximum work happens when there is emptiness within. That when a person completely surrenders and becomes empty, saying that, Lord, I am available for you to work, I am an instrument, you are the doer. Maximum work happens. Somewhere it was very nicely mentioned that music needs the emptiness of bamboo. A poem needs the emptiness of the paper. Light needs the emptiness of the window to come in. In the same way, happiness needs the emptiness of the self. When the self goes away, when the ego gets completely surrendered, in that moment of emptiness is the maximum potential which manifests. Retaining the ego, how much one can do, is always limited. But becoming empty, what one can achieve, is unlimited. You just think about it. Can you name one multinational company which has survived 1,000 years? Any one company? 1,000 years. I'm not talking 100 years, 1,000 years. I don't know. If you know, then you let me know. It will increase my knowledge.
Not Rama, not Krishna.
Multinational company nahi. Exactly. There is no multinational company which has survived more than 1,000 years. But look at the spiritual organizations. When did Jesus go? Till today Christianity is on and on and on. Buddha, when did he go? Today it is a fashion now. Buddhism, I am following Buddhism. What are you doing? Namo Renge Kyum, chanting. One of the fastest growing religions is Buddhism. Buddha never planned. He never went to an IIM or ISB or IIT. He did not do an MBA, and he did not say that in this many years This many branches, this many people, this many followers, nothing. He became empty. He felt so fulfilled by the knowledge he had. He said, let me share. Out of that fulfillment, when that work happens, you just look at that work. It remains unending. 8 years time, Vivekananda ji established Ramakrishna Mission. Only 8 years. In 1893, he addressed the World Parliament of Religions. Do you know the date when he addressed? 26 January.
11 September.
Who said? You have come to my earlier class, that's why. 11 September 1893 he addressed. We remember 11 September for Twin Tower world attack, terrorist attack. Not that we should not remember that, but 11 September is when Vivekananda ji addressed in the World Parliament of Religions. In 1893 and 1902, he took Samadhi. 9 years max to max. In that 9 years time, you just look at the Ramakrishna Mission that he established. And they did not have all that email and fax and telephone and mobile and none of those facilities. What Shankaracharya ji achieved in 16 years, from 16 years to 32 years. Till today, Shankara Matha survives. And how much work is being done. Today we are here because Gurudev was also inspired by Shankaracharya ji's Vedanta and we are all listening. That's the power of selflessness. That one has to believe in that. That when I learn to surrender, the greater in me manifests and unimaginable things will happen. Where is the question of any stress after that? No stress. The very locus of stress is the ego, and that ego can be surrendered. Individually, from within, I can let go of that ego. Then, how do I let go of the ego? I should remember very clearly, work does not happen by me, work happens through me. One of the deepest way to release stress is to drop the doership, that I am not the doer, Bhagwan is the doer. He does everything. Maybe other people in my team, in my company may not be able to understand that, may not have faith in the Lord, may not have the ability to practice. That doesn't matter. I can do that. Internally, I can always feel that the Lord is the doer, I am not the doer, and unburdened. That's why Gurudev used to say that why are all Hindu gods like this? He said Hindu gods are asking you, give me your mind. Like a car, na, you take it and go into the, what is that? Where they get servicing is done, whole car wash, etc. happens. So like that, he said the Hindu gods are asking you, give me your mind, I will do the entire cleansing and I will return it back to you. Completely clean, pure, stress-free. Just surrender. And the Lord, who is the Lord of the universe, who is managing everything in the universe, is always smiling in the temple. And the devotee who is managing just one individual life is very stressed out. Oh God, Bhagwan bachao, please. And Bhagwan who is doing so much is relaxed, very careful. Why? Because no ego. So egolessness. To the extent I surrender, to that extent stress also goes away. So these are 10 aspects of stress management, and whichever one we can apply and we can try and see if our stress will reduce. If anyone has any queries, any questions, you are welcome.
Swamiji, you spoke about moderation, but isn't it also true that breakthroughs and innovations have come from people who actually got to an extreme of dedication and really didn't have a balanced life? If you take Einstein for example, he didn't live a regular, moderate, balanced life. And that's why he was able to come out with some breakthroughs.
No, I wouldn't say that because of the imbalance the breakthrough came, but because of his sense of dedication the breakthrough came. sense of dedication need not be coupled with imbalance. Because you will find examples of people who are dedicated and who have lived a balanced life and still they are able to excel so much more. What is important is the holistic picture of life, not just one aspect of life. You see. The reason that the great achievers who are able to achieve these things with whatever imbalance is there, the people around them, they also go through a lot of difficulties, right? Einstein's wife, for example, what she would have gone through. He married her. He should not have married actually. If he is so dedicated to science and that he doesn't have balance, the amount of emotional disturbance the wife would have gone through is tremendous. So, in the holistic picture of life, if one is able to achieve the dedication with the balance, is always preferable. It is not that one cannot achieve, but one has to strive towards that. That's what our masters, they teach us. If you look at life of Gurudev or Vivekananda ji or Shankaracharya, their life will be moderation. And through that moderation, the amount of work that they are able to achieve is tremendous. So no doubt that the lives of great achievers and their breakthroughs have come also because they are completely immersed in that. There is no doubt in that. But at the same time, there are different other aspects of life which are, Charlie Chaplin, for example, was such a great comedian, made the whole world laugh, but in his personal life, why was he in depression? And he committed suicide, I think. So there are consequences of that imbalance. Hence the scriptures say that let there be balance, and through that one can achieve a lot. In today's world especially, are we not seeing that for the first 50 years man spends his health to acquire the wealth, and the next 50 years spends the wealth to take care of the health? That is happening. Is that not the cause? Is that because of the imbalance? So while it has its advantages, but balance is always preferable.
Swami, nowadays technology changing so fast. Take example of Kodak India, Kodak World. Nobody is printing the press, they close down the. So what we have to do for that?
That's why one has to be very clear about the time and innovation factor. One has to be one step ahead. One has to know the future.
How much invested he has done, all are finished.
That's why the companies are doing research and all that. No? This is the nature of the world. That's one of the reasons why they invest in research, they invest in the future technology and keep ahead of the times. That is a job in business that has to be done, otherwise it will be finished. Whoever imagined that Nokia will close down and Microsoft will take it over? Who? Nobody imagined. BlackBerry in the what condition it is today. At one point everybody was BlackBerry, BlackBerry, BlackBerry. Where is BlackBerry today? In its last phase. One has to keep in touch with the times. Even iPhone for that matter, you will see that. Apple.
Sony is closing down his factory.
The phone company has destroyed a lot of things. Huh? Cameras,
Or
gone.
printing press in US.
Printing, gone. Scanners not required. Everything is there now in the phone.
Now, big companies have also become so defaulters.
Yeah, those are different reasons for it.
Investors have gone dead. I mean,
So the point there is to that's why that time, one has to be very clear about timing in business.
But due to that, when the person got in the depression.
That can't help it. That's why we said that don't depend on that. You created something, it did not last, so what? You still have the capacity to create something else, create. And if that time has gone and you can't create, then come to terms with it, that's it, my time is over. Accept it gracefully and live life focusing on other aspects. Today's world is like that. Every 2-3 years there is tremendous change. One has to keep in touch. That's why it is so ruthless. Okay, thank you very much. It was nice to share with all of you for the last 3 days. Our next month, we will let you know where the talks are and what the topic will be. Some things are yet to be decided, so we will keep you informed. So if you give us your details, we will keep you informed with our phone calls and emails.
Thank you so much, Swamiji, for yet another inspiring and insightful talk. Nothing gets done without the grace of the Lord, the blessings of Pujya Gurudev, and the many helping hands that He provides. This program will truly be left incomplete if we did not thank the people that made it happen. I'd like to begin by expressing our deepest gratitude to Pujya Swami Swadmananji for taking time out to take us on this de-stressing journey. I do hope, Swamiji, that we are able to implement at least a few, if not all, of the stress management techniques that you've shared with us. Thank you so much. Our sincere thanks to Srimati Vinita Ji Asrani, President, Chinmay Mission South Mumbai, for her unstinting support to us at all times of the day and night. A very big thank you to all the volunteers who have been selflessly working under Srimati Vinita Ji Asrani's guidance. A very big thank you to all, and also to your staff. Many, many thanks, most importantly, to Indira Ji Rohera for her selfless effort to organize this yajna. Thank you, Indira Ji, for your continued patronage and support. Today's prasad has also been sponsored by Indira Ji. Thank you once again for it. And last but not the least, we'd like to thank you, our lovely audience, for your presence here over these 3 days. We hope to see you again for our future programs. We will be keeping you posted about them. For those of you who would like to offer the Guru Dakshina, please do come forward in a single file, offer it to Pujya Swamiji, and receive your prasad. Thank you so much for being here today.
Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti